Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Sri Lanka's recently elected President Anura Dissanayake is set to arrive in Delhi for a 3-day state visit. This is his first bilateral tour after assuming office in September. US and Arab leaders call for a stable transition in Syria, urge respect for minorities after the end of the Assad regime. Congo-Rwanda peace talks in Angola are cancelled after hitting a deadlock. Talks were due on Sunday to end the conflict in the eastern DRC. And tons on day 2 of the Gabba test by Travis Head and Steve Smith put Australia in the driver's seat against India in a series level at 1 match each. Well, first up, Sri Lanka's President Anura Dissanayake is set to begin his India tour today, marking his first overseas visit after assuming office. President Dissanayake will be accompanied by Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister Vijay Diwas and Deputy Minister of Finance Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma during the 3-day visit. President Dissanayake will meet his Indian counterpart Draupadi Murmu and hold talks with Prime Minister Modi on Monday as well, while External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will call on the visiting dignitary on Sunday evening. Let's get you more on this. My colleague Amritpal Singh joins us live for more on this. Amrit, what can you tell us about the significance of this visit coming at a juncture where Sri Lanka is still looking to economically recover from the kind of doldrums, financial doldrums it was in not too far back?
Gautam, this visit is significant from both the optics point of view and the substantial bit of it. The optics, the very fact that the Sri Lankan president chooses New Delhi as his first port of call or foreign port of call instead of Beijing carries significance. It's a signaling that it considers, Mr. Dissanayake considers India a more important ally. Though they have an independent relationship with China, they being the biggest lenders to Sri Lanka. So Mr. Dissanayake will be making a visit to Beijing, but that comes after that. So that is the optics part of it. The substantial part of it, as you rightly pointed out, the economy is in doldrums. The first thing that he needs to get back on track is the Sri Lankan economy. The bailout terms with the IMF have to be renegotiated. He needs more investment. He needs more FDI coming into his country. He needs to create jobs, and that's why India is important. He, apart from meeting the Prime Minister, calling on the President, meeting the Indian External Affairs Minister, he's also meeting a business, he's addressing a business conclave where he'll be pitching for increased investments from the private sector of India into his country. One, to boost infrastructure and manufacturing and production in his country. Second, to strengthen trade linkages. Third, as a byproduct of that, create jobs in his country. Inflation is sky high in Sri Lanka. He needs to get it down. For that, he needs the money to flow in. The other part of his visit would focus on maritime security. India being the closest neighbor, being the first responder in times of distress, and the area, the Indian Ocean region being an important preserve both for Sri Lanka and for India, an important component. Sri Lanka becomes an important component in India's vision of Sagar. Therefore, this visit is important from the perspective of Sri Lanka, also from the perspective of India.
And Dissanayake has, of course, first time become president of his country. So, so far, what are the indications that have been coming from him as to how would he like his would he like to conduct relations with India? Now that he is leading the country and has the numbers, very impressive numbers to do that.
Oh, yes, he has the mandate. He has the clear mandate. In September, he won the presidential election. His party in alliance the NPP took the 2/3 majority when the elections were held in November. So he clearly has the mandate. His stance traditionally hasn't been very pro-India. He and his party have all along been opposed to, the Indian presence, be it in the Sri Lanka, when the Sri Lanka peace accord took place. He wanted the IPKF out. Life will come a full circle when he receives the Guard of Honor from the same forces that he's so tooth and nail opposed in his country. Then, on the 13th Amendment, giving provincial autonomy to the north and the east in Sri Lanka. These are issues, contentious issues. Even during his campaign, he was opposed to, the Adani power projects in his country, etc. So there are issues, but I think Mr. Dissanayake also realizes that his country needs the money. He's made the right kind of noises saying that that was then and this is now, and things have changed, and we will not allow anything on our any activity from our soil that's inimical to India's security interests. When Dr. Jaishankar went there last month, so clearly, Mr. Dissanayake realizes the reality of the times that he's become the president in, and I think would want to strike a balance and seek more and more investment, and also see how he can build on the convergences rather than harp on the divergences.
And Amrit, India was also very neighborly, especially when Sri Lanka was going through the kind of crisis that it was, and it's not completely out of the woods yet. But how is India looking to take its ties with Sri Lanka forward now?
No, absolutely, you're right that India was, India extended both a loan and a grant of $4 billion when the economic crisis hit them. India, being the closest neighbor, has always, looked at Sri Lanka as an ally, as an important country, as I said, as a central to its Saga vision, central to maritime security in the Indian Ocean region. There are, differences on some aspects. India has concerns about the Chinese, satellite tracking vehicles, ships docking in there. So India has those concerns, but historically we've had ties with them, cultural ties. There is a large Tamil population, though they are Sri Lankan Tamils, but the sheer ethnicity with Tamils on this side of the Park Strait. So, there is this fisherman issue. So there are issues that create friction between the two sides, but the approach that India has is that India would want to take Sri Lanka along. It would want to see a strong and prosperous Sri Lanka. It wouldn't want to see a failed economy and a failed polity in its neighborhood, which is amply existent in India's neighborhood.
Yes, India's closest maritime neighbor, Sri Lanka, very vital to India's key interests, particularly in South Asia and beyond. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Amritpal Singh. Now, Moldova's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister, Mihail Popsoy, arrived on his first official visit to India, marking a significant step in strengthening ties between the two nations. Welcoming Moldovan Deputy PM, India's External Affairs Ministry in a social media post said that his visit will deepen India-Moldova bilateral ties and foster a stronger partnership. During his visit, Deputy PM Popsoy will meet India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. On Monday, Popsoy will participate in a wreath-laying ceremony at Rajghat. His visit follows the second India-Moldova Foreign Office consultations held in New Delhi in October. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar attended the release of India's World magazine in Delhi on Sunday. The event showcased discussions on India's evolving geopolitical role and its aspirations in the international arena. And speaking at the event, Dr. Jaishankar underscored that India's pivotal role as a first responder and its growing importance on the global stage. He also outlined a strategic vision for India's foreign policy, advocating for a balanced approach that involves thinking big, thinking long, but thinking smart.
The idea of India as a first responder, I can predict will actually get more and more frequent. I mean, pretty much anything in the expanded neighborhood region, I think there would be an expectation that in some way India be part of an international response whenever such a thing is warranted. We have to do very much more with the world. I think it's for the good of this country that our own progress and development will accelerate with a deeper engagement with the world. So my sense for a foreign policy ahead would really be to think big, to think long, but to think smart.
Let's now talk about developments in West Asia, particularly Syria. Well, Jordan has been hosting a meeting of foreign ministers to discuss support for Syria after the fall of the Assad regime. While Turkey will reopen its embassy in the country after a 12-year closure, Russia is pulling back its military from the front lines in northern Syria.
After Bashar al-Assad stepped down, America and Arab leaders are pushing for stable Syrian transition. Jordan's King Abdullah II met the top diplomats from 8 Arab countries in the Jordanian Red Sea port of Aqaba to discuss a peaceful transition in Syria, which was backed by the UN and the Arab League, following which the United States and regional diplomats have urged the new Syrian rulers to restore order for minorities in the country. At the conclusion of the meeting, Arab, Turkish and European diplomats have agreed that formation of a new government in Syria must be inclusive and should respect minority rights.
What matters is inclusivity in implementing the resolution, no exclusion or marginalization, so that all Syrians feel that this historical moment for all of them.
Stability in the region is very important because our neighbors' problems today are our problems tomorrow. And therefore, I'm very glad that we had this meeting together with the international actors as well as the regional actors.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, after the meeting, said the transition process should be Syrian-led, Syrian-owned, and produce an inclusive and representative government.
We agreed that the transition process should be Syrian-led and Syrian-owned and produce an inclusive and representative government. The rights of all Syrians, including minorities and women, should be respected. Humanitarian aid should be able to reach people who need it. State institutions should deliver essential services to the Syrian people. Syria should not be used as a base for terrorist groups or others who threaten Syria's people, its neighbors, or the world.
The United States has also made direct contact with Syrian rebel group HTS, which led the offensive that toppled the Assad regime. It is the first acknowledgement of direct American contact with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham.
Yes, we've been in contact with HTS and with other parties. We have impressed upon everyone we've been in contact with the importance of helping find Austin Tice and bringing him home.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has ordered the military to prepare to remain throughout the winter in the zone and summit of Mount Hermon. Israel Army Chief Herzi Halevi has visited troops operating in the UN-patrolled buffer zone that separates the Golan Heights from Syria. Meanwhile, Russia is pulling back its military from the front lines in northern Syria, but is not leaving its 2 main bases in the country after the fall of President Assad. Bureau Report, DD India.
And thousands of Israelis took to the streets for a deal to release the remaining hostages held in Gaza after more than 14 months of conflict with Hamas in the Palestinian territory. There has been guarded optimism in recent days that a ceasefire and hostage release deal for Gaza might finally be within reach after months of abortive mediation efforts. Now, negotiations between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, that's the DRC, aimed at ending the ongoing conflict in eastern DRC were cancelled on Sunday after reaching a deadlock. The talks, mediated by Angola's President João Lourenço, had raised hopes of a resolution to the violence caused by the Rwanda-backed rebel group since 2021. Rwanda demanded direct talks between DRC and the rebels, which the DRC rejected, accusing Rwanda of supporting the rebels. All right, we're taking you across live to India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who's addressing an event at the Moldovan Embassy. Take a look.
We have witnessed, as you've heard, a growing engagement between our two countries, spanning trade, education, technology, and cultural exchanges. Moldova's warm embrace of India yoga traditions and practices, of Hindi language and Indian culture. I think these are reflections of our close people-to-people ties. Moldova is a second home to, I believe now, about 2,000 Indian students. Would that be right? And I'm very glad to meet some of them today. And I want to tell our young friends that in many ways you embody our partnership, you help to bridge cultures, and you are actually forging a lasting friendship between our countries. In a larger context, India has cultivated a much more dynamic and contemporary relationship with Europe, one which covers trade, technology, tourism, education, obviously, energy, healthcare, and cultural exchanges. But where Moldova is concerned, we see it both in a bilateral context as well as a larger regional one. And it is, I agree, very much a relationship founded on mutual respect and shared values. And I would add, we are also in some ways development partners. The establishment of a Moldovan formal diplomatic presence, formal diplomatic physical presence in India's vibrant capital is a practical step towards strengthening our diplomatic relations. I believe, Excellency, that it would certainly help to advance our collaboration in key areas. I think a physical presence here would both give you a sense of the possibilities in the relationship, as well as a granular feeling of exactly how to realize it. Today, when we stand next to each other and we look out at the world, we should also recognize that there is a shared vision of a world between us, a world that values peace, understanding, and cooperation. I believe that the establishment of this embassy is a new chapter that will further our partnership. As we celebrate its inauguration, let us renew our commitment to build that world where the future is one of convergences and shared values. I'm confident that this embassy will become a beacon of friendship. And let me express the expectation, hope that in the not very distant future, you will see an Indian embassy in Moldova as well. So I still have to get a few people to agree to that. But on behalf of the government and people of India, again, I offer Excellency my warmest congratulations on this very, very important occasion to you, to the ambassador, to your teams. And I very much hope that this embassy would serve as a bridge, not just to foster understanding, but to actually give a practical meaning to our cooperation. Thank you once again for having me here this evening.
So there you saw India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, at the Moldovan embassy in the national capital. Moldova had announced a decision to open its embassy in India just in 2023, in April 2023. And it's a happy occasion indeed that the Moldovan Deputy Prime Minister is in India on an official visit. He's also the Foreign Minister, and on the occasion you saw the External Affairs Minister addressing India-Moldova ties in a larger context, India's ties with Europe as well. Now, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced on Sunday that 5 members of the Bali 9 drug smuggling ring have been repatriated from Indonesia. The transfer follows diplomatic negotiations between the two nations earlier this month, aimed at finalizing the agreement.
I'm pleased to confirm that Australian citizens Matthew Norman, Scott Rush, Martin Stevens, C.E. Chen and Michael Shugai, have returned to Australia this afternoon. I want to express my gratitude to President Prabowo for Indonesia's cooperation and commitment to working with Australia on this matter. These Australians served more than 19 years in prison in Indonesia. It was time for them to come home.
Pakistan has signed a $330 million loan agreement with the Asian Development Bank to enhance social protection programs focusing on education, healthcare and poverty reduction. Meanwhile, the World Bank has cancelled over $500 million in budget support loans, citing unmet conditions including power purchase agreement revisions under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Germany Social Democrats plan to introduce a Made in Germany premium in the next government to boost investment in Europe's largest economy, the party's election manifesto showed on Sunday ahead of a likely early election next year. According to the document seen by a news agency, the plan includes a direct tax refund of 10% on equipment investments by businesspersons. German's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, an SPD member, sent a request to Parliament last week to hold a vote of confidence on Monday, setting a path to an early federal election next year after the collapse of his coalition. The SPD currently polls at 17%, and INSA poll showed on Saturday, trailing the conservative CDU and far-right AfD at 31% and 20% respectively. The SPD, which governs Germany in a minority government with the Greens, said in its manifesto it plans to incentivize purchases of German-made electric cars with a temporary tax reduction offered to buyers. France's territory of Mayotte has been hit by the worst cyclone to hit the islands in nearly a century. At least 14 people have been killed in Mayotte when the fierce cyclone battered the French Indian Ocean territory on Sunday, with officials warning it will take days to know the full toll. Rescue workers and supplies are being rushed in by air and sea, but their efforts are likely to be hindered by damage to airports and electricity distribution in a territory where even clean drinking water was already subject to chronic shortages. Cyclone Chido made landfall on Saturday, causing wind gusts of more than 225 kilometers per hour. The French government has sent 110 officers from the civil, security and military wings and firefighters to tackle the situation. French Prime Minister François Bayrou also chaired an emergency cabinet meeting on the matter.
Situation vraiment exceptionnelle depuis.
It is a truly unusual situation. There had not been such a climate event in Mayotte since 1934, and as rainwater ran downhill and the land became unstable, it obviously was a disaster. All makeshift homes had been completely destroyed. So this climate event was absolutely tragic. The state, the agencies, the ministers are mobilizing.
Une catastrophe et l'entièreté.
Meanwhile, Cyclone Chido also struck Mozambique early Sunday, intensifying as it crossed the Mozambique Channel before making landfall about 40 kilometers south of Pemba. The storm is forecast to bring thunderstorms, strong winds with gusts up to 160 kilometers per hour and over 250 millimeters of rain in 24 hours, affecting the Cabo Delgado and Nampula provinces. San Francisco residents were woken up by a tornado warning early Saturday morning during a powerful storm system that battered the region with heavy rain and wind. It was the first ever tornado warning for San Francisco, but not the first tornado. The National Weather Service issued the alert for northern San Mateo County and parts of downtown San Francisco after radar detected a cyclonic rotation strong enough to trigger the warning. Although tornadoes are uncommon in the area, the conditions were severe enough to warrant heightened caution. Although tornadoes are uncommon in the area, the conditions were severe enough to warrant heightened caution. Following a resounding victory in the Maharashtra Assembly elections, the state cabinet was sworn in on Sunday in the presence of Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis and his deputies Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar. Governor C.P. Radhakrishnan administered the oath to the ministers at Raj Bhavan in Nagpur. A total of 33 cabinet and 6 MOSs were sworn in into the Grand Alliance's government. 19 ministers are from the BJP, 11 from the Shiv Sena and 9 from the NCP. Cabinet expansion took place 10 days after Devendra Fadnavis took oath as Chief Minister, while Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar took oath as Deputy Chief Ministers. The swearing in of the State Cabinet in Nagpur, which comes a day before the winter session of the legislature, marks a rare occasion, as the last such ceremony in Nagpur took place in 1991, when then Governor C. Subramaniam administered the oath to Chhagan Bhujbal and other ministers. Now, on the eve of Vijay Diwas, an at-home was held at Army House in Delhi on Sunday. India's President Draupadi Murmu presided over the event. The eve was hosted by the Chief of Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi. The event was attended by Vice President of India, Defence Minister and Chief of Defence Staff, Chief of Air Staff and top brass of the Indian Army. India celebrates Vijay Diwas, commemorating the historic victory over Pakistan in 1971 war. A short film highlighting India's self-reliance in defence was also screened on the occasion. Sports now, and Steve Smith and Travis Head smashed centuries as Australia posted a commanding 405 for the loss of 7 wickets on day 2 of the third test against India in Brisbane. Smith notched up a hard-earned 101, while Head marched on to a swashbuckling 152 at the Gabba. The duo batted throughout the entire middle session, unravelling India's hard work in the morning. It took Jasprit Bumrah to salvage something from a tough day for India. The pacer took 3 wickets after tea to finish the day with his 12th 5-wicket haul. Pacer Akashdeep and spinner Ravindra Jadeja remained wicketless. Alex Carey was unbeaten on 45 and Mitchell Starc was on 7 at stumps. The 5-match series is tied 1-1. India beat Pakistan by 9 wickets in the Group A match of the Under-19 T20 Women's Asia Cup in Kuala Lumpur on Sunday. Opting to bat first, Pakistan managed to score 67 for 7 in 20 overs, with wicketkeeper batter Komal Khan top scoring with a 32 ball 24, hitting 4 boundaries. In turn, India achieved the target in 7.5 overs, losing 1 wicket in the process. Left-handed batter G. Kamilini top scored for the side, returning undefeated on 44 of 29 balls, which included 4 fours and 3 sixes. Now, India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platforms. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then download Waves today. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.